Sergeants, please call the members so that they can report to the council chambers. I do want to thank Mr. Bonin, Weezar, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, and Rue for already being here. Sergeants, I need one more member and we can begin today's meeting. Good morning. Shh. Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 2nd. Want to welcome everyone to your Los Angeles City Council meeting. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. The public is welcome. Madam Clerk, we do have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Harris Dawson, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Englander moves, Bonin seconds. Next.
Mr. President, commendatory resolutions for approval.
Okay, Koretz moves, Krikorian seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, there are requests to continue item 16 to March 22nd and items 1C, D, J, and L to April 1st.
Okay, so without objection, that'll be the order.
Further, the Department of Building and Safety recommends that the following items be received and filed. 1A, E, P, V, W, X, and Y as the liens have been paid in full. And item AC, as the property has been determined to be an owner-occupied dwelling exempt from lien proceedings.
Okay, so without objection, that'll be the order. Continue, please.
Items 1 through 9 are items noticed for public hearing. An Energy and Environment Committee report has been submitted and circulated for item 9.
Okay, do we have cards?
Yes, there are cards on 1, 3, 4, 7, and 9.
Okay, let's hold those items. Members' specials. Then let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Continue.
And, Mr. President, the ords will be held over to March 15th unless reconsidered with 12 members present.
Okay, well, I would hope we would have enough members today, so when we get to 12, please interrupt me and we'll promptly dispense with that. Okay, continue.
Items 10 through 19 are items for which public hearings have been held. An Energy and Environment Committee report has been submitted and circulated for item 10, and a Public Safety Committee report has been submitted and circulated for item 17.
All right, so let's hold 10 member specials. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Continue.
On the continuation agenda, items 21 through 22 are items for which public hearings have been held, and a motion is required on item 22. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Mr. Koretz.
That item 22 be called special.
Okay, let's hold 22. Let's vote on item 21. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. Root. That brings us where?
The continuation agenda, item 23, is an item for which a public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Mr. Weezar.
We could call that special, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, so let's return. So what, we're at presentations?
Correct.
Ms. Martinez, did you want to begin? The floor is yours. In fact, let me get you to hold on one second. We have 12 members, Madam Clerk. So what is it that we need to vote on reconsideration? And then let's dispense.
That would be for items 2, 5, 6, and 8.
Okay, on those items, let's vote for reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Now let's actually vote on the items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All right, Ms. Martinez, the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. Today we stand here to pay tribute to the many accomplishments that Latinas in our city and state have contributed to our great city. Today we recognize Latina History Day, and HOPE, Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, has been sponsoring Latina History Day, the conference, for the past 25 years. HOPE has anchored itself in the principle that knowledge of Latinas' historical contributions to our society, combined with the political engagement, will guarantee a more representative democratic government. It's fitting that we celebrate Latina History Day during Women's History Month so that we can memorialize the important role that Latinas have played and continue to play in women's history here in our city and in our country. Today, Latinas are continuing to break barriers and pioneering in areas that our mothers dreamed one day we can do. Latinas as a whole are making advances in our society and in our city. While we recognize that there is still a lot more to do, I have to recognize the fact that locally we have incredible women who are inspiring and empowering other women and girls to follow in their footsteps. As Latinas, we are at a point where we can take control of our future and be the architects of change in our own communities. Our sisters are running community organizations, businesses, schools, and helping influence the next generation of leaders here in our city. And I hope, and I am proud, and I hope that we can all recognize what the contributions that HOPE has contributed to the women and mentoring them here in our city. And with their annual Latina History Day conference, that we can also help contribute to influencing adults both in high school and in their careers to help them build a better future for their communities. This year's conference theme is the Architects of the Future. And colleagues, as a Latina, I am very proud of the fact that we have a long history in this country of making positive contributions in our community and also leading the way to ensuring that we become the architects of the future for our community and future generations to come. I look forward to celebrating this day for many years to come in celebrating our stories and our inspiration and what got us here and our tenacity to make sure that our stories get heard and that we are represented at every single level of government here in our city. On behalf of the City of Los Angeles, I want to recognize and congratulate Hope on 25 years of service to Latinas and their contributions to our great city. It's my pleasure to introduce this year's conference chair, Evelyn Martinez. No relation, but still.
All right, let's give her a round of applause.
Introduce her and give her a big round of
Miss
applause.
Martinez, yes.
She's now leading and chairing this year's conference that's going to take place next Friday on the 11th here at the Biltmore Hotel here in our city. So welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And we are family. We're sisters. We're Latina sisters. So thank you, Councilwoman Martinez, for recognizing Hope today. Hope is an incredible organization that continues to look for ways to help Latinas in our communities. My name is Evelyn Martinez. I'm a Wells Fargo area president in the greater Los Angeles area, and I'm the proud chair of the 25th Annual Latina History Day, which is an incredible day for celebration of the accomplishments of many amazing Latinas. In our silver anniversary year, we'll be highlighting key contributions of Latinas to our nation, and we'll also be discussing critical issues in our communities, such as human trafficking and how to engage Latinas in our 2016 elections. Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, HOPE, has remained dedicated to improving the education and political and economic status of Latinas in our nation. At the conference, we conduct workshops, and this is one of the many ways that we're able to help Latinas. The workshops are focused around building a personal health plan, college access, understanding the importance of STEM careers, and also the importance of building a personal brand as Latinas. Latinas are breaking glass ceilings and accomplishing many amazing things that are showing what's possible for our future generations. Latinas are business owners, executives in large corporate organizations, civil servants, and are appointed to powerful positions, and we want to continue to see those numbers grow. This year, we'd like to honor three incredible women. We're going to be honoring Virginia Espino, a historian at the UCLA Center for Oral Research, Kamala Lopez, actress, filmmaker, activist, and president of Heroica Films, and Elizabeth Vasquez, CEO of We Connect International, a corporate-led nonprofit that helps to empower women business owners to lead in the global economy. Latina History Day celebrates the many accomplishments of Latinas, but more importantly, celebrates the foundation building for future generations. Latina History Day will take place on Friday, March 11th. We will have roughly 800 attendants at this event, and we're really excited to have that many participants. I would like to personally invite all of the members of the council to join us that day. We will be at the Millennium Biltmore right here in downtown Los Angeles. Once again, Councilwoman Martinez, thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity and for this honor. We hope to see you there.
Thank you. And colleagues, I also want to introduce briefly Helen Torres, who's the Executive Director or CEO President of HOPE, and some of the board members that are here with us this morning. Congratulations again to HOPE on your 25th year of Latina History Day. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we look forward to supporting you every year. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
That's okay. I know. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. O'Farrell. Let's give one more round of applause for Latina History Day. Come on, we can do better than that. Thank you for all you've done. And thank you so very much, Miss Martinez.
Mr. President, colleagues, it is always a good day in council when you can bring someone from the city family up here and celebrate their years of good work and contributing to the city in their profession. And this is such a day, and we are celebrating the career of Cesar Medrano from the Bureau of Engineering. How about a big round of applause for Cesar Medrano? I am honored to recognize Cesar of the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering, for his dedication to the city of Los Angeles and our constituents for 26 years of dedicated service. On February 26, 1990, Cesar started his career with the city of Los Angeles and as a cartographer in the land development section. In 92, he transferred to the Bureau of Engineers Central District as a civil engineering drafting technician working in the stormwater design section. In 99, he was promoted to senior civil engineer drafting technician in the Valley District office, working in the field, conducting investigations, and finding solutions for the 5 council districts in the Valley. In 06, Cesar transferred to the Bureau of Engineering's Structural Division, and in 2007, back to Central District Division, working for senior civil engineer Greg Vandergriff in the Land Development and GIS Mapping section. I've had the personal pleasure of working with both gentlemen, Cesar and Greg, on so many issues, so many projects across my district, which is why I'm so pleased to be able to stand here today celebrating Cesar. In 1990, Cesar was named as chairperson of the cultural activities for the Los Angeles City Employees Chicano Association, where he established Latino Heritage Month in the city of Los Angeles, with the blessing of then-Mayor Tom Bradley and Commissioner Percy Duran III. Cesar has selflessly served the United States of America as a U.S. Army Reserve soldier for 23 years. First enlisted as a specialist and working up the ranks to Master Sergeant. He has been activated overseas 4 times. In other words, Cesar Medrano is also a hero. No surprise that Cesar is a longtime supporter and participant of the Northeast Los Angeles Veterans Day Parade in Eagle Rock. Joining us here today is representatives from the following office. Our friend Hilda Solis, County Supervisor. I'd like to acknowledge Antonio Chapa, who works in the Veteran Affairs, on Veteran Affairs issues for County Supervisor Solis. And we have Janet Chen, who is Public Affairs Liaison from State Senator Ed Hernandez's office, who represents the 22nd District. Did I get that right, or is it switched? I got that right. Okay, thank you. For some reason, I thought I switched it. We also have today Cesar Thomas and Manuel Nicolas Medrano from Cesar's family. Before we have Mr. Medrano come up, I'd like to ask Greg Vandergriff to say a few words. Greg?
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, council members. It's been my honor to work with Cesar since 2006 as a supervisor in our B permit group. One of the things that I really appreciated with him was his ability to meet with and talk with the public. Many times when people came to our public counter, they had questions about how to get the services that they needed, and Cesar was able to direct them and help them obtain those services. Most recently, as a supervisor, we've been issuing permits to provide gigabit service to the residents of the city of Los Angeles, and he's also been instrumental in making sure that we get those permits issued. So he's going to be a real detriment to my office to lose him, but we appreciate the years of service that he's provided not only to the city of Los Angeles, but to the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned before, it's a great day when we can really highlight the career of a public servant like Cesar Medrano. And for anyone who's watching this on television, just know that city workers have great integrity, and they do the work day in and day out while no one is looking. And that is the definition of integrity. And for every Cesar Medrano, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more who toil every day for the public good. And that's the story here. So Having said that, I would like to present this certificate of appreciation for Cesar Medrano. Thank you so much.
All right.
Squeeze in. Oh, one more? Okay. So you say a few words? Yeah? No? No? Nothing? He's declining to say a few words. Just let his resume speak for him. Thank you.
Let's give him another round of applause. And again, thank you so much for all you've done. Mr. Harris Dawson.
Much, Mr. Chair. I want to make a request that we reconsider item 1S from March 1st in order to continue it for 30 days.
Okay, 1S, let's vote on reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
Fourteen ayes.
Okay, and that was to be continued
30 days.
30 days to April 1st.
April 1st. All right. Okay, members, why don't we, Mr. Fuentes, if you're ready to start this conversation, why don't we deal with items 9 and 10 at this time?
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I'll ask the department to make its way up to the center table, and we're here with our board president from DWP. Colleagues, before you, you've got two items. Items 9 and 10 deal with the proposed rate increases to water and power, and I want to begin by thanking all of you for your attention today on this matter, but in particular to my colleagues, Mr. Blumenfield and Mr. O'Farrell, who attended both meetings and sat through and participated and really largely informed the almost 7 hours of testimony, conversation on this very important case. So thank you for attending those committee meetings. And Mr. Bonin, thank you for making it yesterday as well. I think you're absolutely right. This is a very complicated conversation, and we all benefit from participating. So thank you so much for being there. The measures that you have before you today, colleagues, I think are the best of what it is that we can get today. And I think a lot of thanks is also due to the ratepayer advocate, who should probably join the department at the center table as well.
Dr. Pickle?
This proposal, come on up, Dr. Pickle. This proposal is largely shaped on what it is that the department can accomplish. It certainly doesn't speak to what the department needs. We have a tremendous need to maintain the integrity and the reliability of this enterprise, but unfortunately, colleagues, I don't believe that the department is in a place where they can actually get the job that we need done, actually done. And so this rate case, largely shaped by the ratepayer advocate, gets the department what it is that it needs until we make a decision on what it is that we want from this utility. The utility should really be a tremendous thing that we celebrate in the city of Los Angeles. It should be something that we absolutely celebrate in the fact that it is a not-for-profit, it's owned by us, and there's a lot of capabilities that we can avail ourselves of this department. But I would argue that the department has too many rules and certainly too many masters and doesn't operate as effectively as it probably could. But we can't negate the fact that we have to maintain the operation of the department until we get to a point where we can actually make this department work for all of the rate base the way it's intended to. And so in order to do that, we have to limp along with rate cases, and we have to make sure that the department has the ability to function and that it moves forward. Now, the case before you, there's going to be a small presentation in terms of what it is that the rate cases look like. But I would just remind folks that the consequences of not doing something really outweigh the impacts of what's being proposed. If we don't act today, if we don't move this case forward, we will make it far more expensive for ratepayers and Angelenos across the board. And as much as we really, I think, underappreciate how great this utility is, it really is a cornerstone of this economy in Los Angeles. So we can't afford to make it more expensive than it needs to be. We have to move forward, and I do it with some reservation on the electricity case. I certainly am excited about the policy changes that we've made on the water case, and I'll let staff go into that. So with that, I'd urge an aye vote.
Thank you, sir. Now, we do have, I think we should open it up, at least one of the items on for public comment. You want to take care of the public comment now?
Satisfy Proposition 218, I think we should do that, but I think public comment will be informed by the presentation, so why don't we go ahead and have the presentation and then maybe public comment, and then we can have folks sort of weigh in.
That works. All right. Good to see you all.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President and members, and thank you, Chairman Fuentes. I'm Mel Levine. I'm president of the Board of Commissioners of the DWP, and honored to be to hold that position. I think the chairman summarized very well, particularly in his final comments, the core of the message that we are trying to communicate, and that is that, difficult as it is to ask for a rate increase at any time, the risks of inaction to the ratepayers are greater than any risk that would occur by approving this proposed rate increase. I'm going to leave the nuts and bolts of this to our superb staff. I just wanted to be here to introduce the testimony and to say I was very impressed yesterday at the E&E committee by the scope of the support and the breadth of the support for these proposals. Under the leadership of our general manager, Marcy Edwards, and our superb staff, this has been the most transparent process imaginable. Our staff has had over 70 meetings around the city. The ratepayer advocate has been deeply involved in these meetings and has convinced the staff to include a few provisions that I think improve the proposal. He'll get into these during his testimony. I think with the breadth of support from the business community, the environmental community, the Los Angeles Times, the environmental community is suggesting we aren't asking for enough, but we are asking, as the chairman indicates, for what we believe we can use. So I defer now to General Manager Edwards, and I join the chairman of the committee in asking for your support.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Marcy Edwards, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. I would preface my remarks by saying I believe that the chair of E&E's characterization is absolutely correct. I would also follow with, there are things, though, we have made some significant progress on with DWP, and I want to mention a few of them. It's important to know the last base water rate adjustment was 7 years ago. The last power adjustment was 4 years ago. And in that time frame, Council asked for a number of things, and I want to briefly report back to you on some of the changes that were made. You wanted a new labor contract. You wanted pension reform. That happened. The contract that was put in place will save ratepayers almost $5 billion over the 30-year term. You wanted national and regional utility benchmarking. We're done with Phase 1. We're starting on Phase 2. And in addition, we added 49 indicators into a rate process now we're calling performance-based rates. that will signal early where we are having successes, and it will also signal where we may be falling behind. You ask that our rates be analyzed from a cost of service perspective so that the varying sectors pay what the cost they incur and don't cross-subsidize. This rate plan should achieve that. You ask we continue to protect the low-income sector. This rate plan will achieve that. You ask we inform the public regarding rates. And I think it's over 80 presentations now at this point. We've also had hundreds of thousands of hits on our rate-related websites and videos. You ask we develop support for the rate case. We have support from our business community, the Chamber, LABC, Central City Association, who, by the way, takes credit for blowing up the 2010 rate increase, but we have their support for this plan. We have our friends in the Valley, Valley Industry Commerce Association. We have the support of some of the defenders of our environment, the Sierra Club, NRDC. We have the independent ratepayer advocate saying that our rates are just and reasonable in this plan. These rate adjustments are frankly minimal. They're enough to meet shorter-term legal and environmental mandates and begin to invest in infrastructure that is in desperate need of repair. And I know, and I've been told, that these rate recommendations are not high enough. And frankly, I agree, but I am not willing to ask our customer owners for more until I can be sure that DWP is consistently and predictably making the highest and best use of customers' money. And in part to accomplish that, DWP should be restructured. It has become so massively bureaucratized over time that decentralized decision-making causes even simple decisions to involve sometimes hundreds of people, take months, and cost far more than it should. A restructuring of DWP will create efficiencies, and efficiencies are what I am counting on. Efficiencies and process changes will allow us to make productivity improvements that will save money. And it's through those savings that we'll then be able to reinvest to a greater extent. Until then, you have short-term legal mandates, environmental requirements, bond ratings to hold up, and that's intended to be met by this particular plan. And I therefore ask respectfully for your favorable consideration today of items 9 and 10. I appreciate the opportunity to address you, and I'm going to ask our CFO, Jeff Peltola, to run through a brief presentation.
So if we go to the first page, the priorities for this rate request, again, is aging infrastructure, protect our citizens from drought, transform our supplies, meet mandates, and improve customer service, and importantly, keep our rates competitive. That's something is drastically important to this utility. The breakdown of this, if you look on the left-hand side of the next chart, is 80% of the power revenues are driven by state mandates, renewables, repowering, energy efficiency, which again is our lowest cost and best use of how we satisfy energy needs of our customers, and then reliability, which is our infrastructure, and our market price, which is for fuel. On the water side, 78% is driven by water infrastructure, 59% of that is pipes, valves, pumps, all of those sort of things, and then on the regulatory side we have water quality. On the top side, from roughly 10 to 2, you look on the left-hand side, or 10 to 12, sorry, that's our local water supply. That's going to protect us in the drought. Where we go and what we're experiencing today, we'd be better off if we had done this in the past, and that's how we're preparing for the future. Marcy already mentioned this. It's 80-plus rates presentations. We've been doing it since July. You can see the points of where we went all across the city. And down the bottom, just to point out the video views, we had 384,000 and 237,000 website views. The rate impacts, you can see here, on the first column is the low-use residential. That is our customers, the 30% of our customers that use the least amount of energy and water. And their bill's going to get their monthly bill go from roughly $75 to $84. So it's a little less than $10 per month that it will go up after 5 years. The 50% is our typical residential customer, and so that is, we have half the customers use less, half the customers use more. That's going to go up about $20, so it's again about a 3% increase. And then our high-use residential, which is our top 10% customers, their bill will go from roughly $276 to $357, so it goes up by about $80, 5.3%. That is the conservation-based rate design. The more you use, the higher increase it's going to be. We have made adjustments, though. All of this is used based on the temperature zones. Customers in higher temperature zones will get more energy available for their budget. The next is ways to save. So we have air conditioning tune-up program. We are driven by that by Councilmember Blumenfield on the air conditioning tune-up program. We just approved that through our board. Pool pump rebates. Customers can lower their bills through these conservation programs. It's the best way financially as well as for the environment. Specific to power, one thing to remember, outages cost our customers money. And this is just something that was done by the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in January of 2015. You can see on the left-hand side for large customers, a 1-minute outage costs them roughly $13,000. A 1 hour is $17,000, and a whole day, 8 hours, is $84,000. So it's a lot of money and impacts on our customers. Small commercial customers, while the numbers are less, the impacts are just the same because obviously $600 for a 1 hour outage for them is quite a bit. The next chart shows our infrastructure. You can see on the left-hand side, we have 43% of our poles are over 60 years old. And more importantly, in 10 years, 65% of our poles will be over 60 years old, which is roughly the service life for these poles. This is what we want to start replacing. Poles are just an indicator. We have cross arms, we have cables, we have transformers. All those things are similarly old. On the right-hand side just shows in a prior rate case, we invested in the distribution transformers that serve households. And you can see before that, in 2007, we had a heat storm. Over 28,000 customers were out for more than 24 hours, completely unacceptable for any utility. Because of the investment that we made, it reduced it by 99%, and only 195 customers went out in a longer and hotter heat storm in 2014. I won't go through all of the power supply, but you can see here from the RPS, the energy efficiency, getting out of coal. These are our current plans, and in 2014, we have already had a 17% reduction from our 1990 CO2 levels. 2020 is 42% reduction, and 2026 is a 67% reduction. Again, these are the current plans that we had at the time. The next stage is our spending. So the power is going from $525 million to $850 per year for power system reliability, a 62% increase. Power supply transitions, again, our local repowering our in-basin power plants, going from $800 million to $1.057 billion. And then customer opportunity, which is energy efficiency, is more than doubling. 95% of all this increased spending is for outside contracts. Tremendous amount of economic activity and jobs available for the power side. We think this will create 12,000 jobs. Water will go over as another 9,000. So all in all, this rate increase should create about 21,000 jobs. Next is for the water rate action. Have a picture of the UCLA break. Basically here, when a sudden break like this costs us 3 times more, and it can be many times that multiple, but it's more expensive by 3 to 8 times to fix something when it goes to failure. Besides that, you have public safety issues. You're losing the water. Never mind the traffic impacts and all of that. And you got to remember, Coldwater Canyon happened before this on the other side of the hill, so it's something that's ongoing and what we want to replace. And the next page is on the local water supply. You can see currently, and this is over the last 4 years, roughly half our water comes from MWD, roughly a third from LA Aqueduct, the rest coming from groundwater and recycled. We want to change that. We want to, in the bottom left-hand quadrant, you can see our local water supply that basically cuts out the MWD, which is more expensive water. The spending on page 14 is for our 5-year plan, so infrastructure goes from 306 to more than double, 711. Local water supply goes from 134, roughly 3 times, to 382. Water quality is about the same, and Owens Valley regulatory goes from 100 million to 210. Some of that is for water conservation as well. We will save water by doing this as well as meet regulatory requirements. And again, roughly 95% of this is outside contracts. A question we were asked yesterday in committee we've looked at is our financial downgrade. So in conjunction with the RPA and Navigant, we evaluated and we're using the financial metrics that result in the lowest rate increase. So through that work, we've looked at, and we're going to issue roughly $1.6 billion per year in bonds to fund all this capital activity. So if both systems were downgraded, it's estimated that our water and power customers would pay about $280 million more over the 5-year period. So that would be a transfer of wealth from our ratepayers essentially to New York investors. We have looked at that in detail, and that's why we think we should stay where we are on the financial metrics. And that is the end of the presentation.
Dr. Pickle?
I'm Fred Pickle, Executive Director, Office of Public Accountability, Ratepayer Advocate, and I have a presentation that should be coming up there. We're going to talk about the review process and how we see the changes occurring in the rates and the ongoing challenges. We're going to talk briefly about components of increased transparency for DWP's cost, because a common question we got in the public discussions was, it sounds good, but where is this money going? And our final findings and recommendations. The timeline for this review started in 2013, and for perspective, the last base rate increase for power was in 2013, and the last base rate increase for water was in 2009. Base rates are a half or a little bit less of the total rate. The rate proposals being developed in 2013 were put on hold in 2014 by General Manager Marcy Edwards because she felt, one, she just arrived and wanted to review them, and two, she felt the increases in the range of 6 to 8% per year were too high. The process was reinitiated last July, and the rates proposed, increased rates proposed, were all under 5% per year, 4.7 on water and 4.8 on power. We reviewed these with the assistance of outside experts, with Navigant looking at rates and utility-related issues, and Oliver Wyman looking at labor cost issues. We looked at the financial plans, how the financial costs were divided up among the ratepayers, and how the rates impacted the various customers. We submitted these reports to the DWP board, water in December and power in January. What's our opinion? In the charter, we're required to comment on the reasonableness of rates, and there are three components of that: where the rate's equitable to competing interests, where customer costs related to provision of reliable service, and is the allocation of the cost non-discriminatory. Our opinion: these water and power rate proposals, as modified in December of 15, are just and reasonable. The power rate increase is 3.86% per year, lower than the 3.8% proposed at the start, savings of about 0.9%. The annual revenue growth is $3.5 billion, going up to $4.25 billion over a 5-year period. The top three costs, categorized slightly differently than the DWP approach, is capital spending and new investments for aging infrastructure, upgrading coastal power plants, energy efficiency, and renewables. Second biggest cost is operating and maintenance cost increases. And the third are reductions to unfunded employee pension liabilities. What's the end result? There's more infrastructure replacement and more energy efficiency planned for every year. We think this is less than is needed to keep up with the aging infrastructure, but because of key staffing and process limitations, they The key staffing and processes may be inadequate for the increased spending, and that's part of the reason General Manager Edwards lowered the rate increases earlier, and I think it will still be a challenge. But we have a way to address that in the rate process over the next 5 years. Second, we support DWP's three-tier rate proposal and decoupling so that the impacts of conservation don't hurt DWP financially. Some sample impacts, if we look at a low-use customer in the cooler coastal zone, they might pay $6 per month cumulative over the next 5 years. In the valley, in the warmer areas, a typical customer uses more power. They might pay $8 per month increase over the 5-year period. For the same customer in the cooler zone, 500 kilowatt hours, in the coastal zone, they would pay $12 per month cumulative over the period. This is a chart that I won't walk you through, explaining the details of the residential rates. I think the rate summaries have been complete. One of the things that DWP faces as a challenge is not just increased conservation and more rooftop solar, but also their rates because of changes in the energy mix and other factors have been moving ahead of their peers. And now, while only Sacramento Municipal Utility District was cheaper, others will be coming cheaper than DWP over this 5-year period. To water rates are 4.7% increase. Revenue growing from about $1 billion to about $1.4 billion over the next 5 years. Again, capital spending, O&M, and reductions to employee underfunded pension liability are the key factors. And again, while there are more pipeline replacements planned every year and more other infrastructure spending, it's less than needed to keep up with the system, and key staffing may be inadequate for the increased spending. What are the increases? If you're a low-use single-family resident, the increases are going to be about 2% per year. If you're a multi-family unit that doesn't go into the second tier, and most should be able to be in that category, it's about 2% per year. For a high water use, not in the fourth tier, it's going to be 6% per year. And because of the allocation of cost of service, there's a large but necessary increase in public irrigation rates. These projections, of course, are based on a return to a normal water year, and we're all praying for lots of rain later this month. Again, here are the details of the new 4 tiers on water rates. I'm not going to walk through this chart, but it's important to note that if you're a low-level user, the increases are low. If you're up in the 4th tier, you'll have increasingly higher financial incentives to conserve. A rate comparison of DWP versus its peers shows the same trend we saw in the power side. Again, we need to allow for changes in productivity or improvements in productivity and processes over the period of these rates. And toward that end, we're planning a mid-period correction in rates, an interim report after 2 more full fiscal years of review. This will allow adjustment by the DWP board within a 2% band of the base rates. And if it's outside the 2% band, up or down, we will have the changes come back to council for review. In addition to that review, after 2 full fiscal years, we're going to have 6-month reporting on key metrics. So we're going to be watching DWP's progress very closely over this period. A key component that helped gain public acceptance for this was going into much greater depth on transparency on things like external relationships, city services charged to DWP, city departments and their bill payments to DWP, labor relations and outsourcing, the cost of solar, training costs, and overall labor costs. In the labor costs, there are two pieces of good news. Base rates are better versus peers than the last review, and pensions are better versus the peers versus last time. Overtime was higher than expected, but is being addressed, and productivity, as recognized in DWP's review, a lot of their O&M costs are in the 75th percentile. The other reviews by Navigants put them in about the 75th percentile. So they need to work on productivity, and that's the importance of this next stage of benchmarking for them. So in key findings and recommendations, we believe DWP's power and rate proposals, as modified in December, are just and reasonable. The Office of Public Accountability encourages approval of the proposed rates and ordinances. We have some other more detailed recommendations in that list, but I won't walk you through those.
Thank you. Any other speakers before I go to the public?
No, sir. We're just able to answer questions when you're ready.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into public comment. We'll do a minute each on each item, beginning with John Holland, Adam Lane, Elizabeth Harley. Please come forward.
Good morning. I'm John Howland with the Central City Association. We represent some of the biggest property owners in Los Angeles, including not only high-rise office and residential properties, but also universities, hospitals, and light manufacturing. Commercial property owners pay 60% of the total power rate revenue and about one-third of the total water rate revenue that DWP receives annually. We and our members have a stake in this debate. Marcy Edwards and her staff made 2 presentations to our property owners and our members. They provided factual backup that was incontrovertible. They worked with individual property owners to assess the impacts of the increases on their properties. They explained the reasons for the increases and why these amounts are needed. We were able to rely completely on the facts they have presented. Property owners don't like these increases, but they know that the delays to maintenance and the improvement of our infrastructure creates a high risk for their properties and for commerce in the city in general. And even with these increases, DWP remains the lowest rates of any major city in Los Angeles. This is why CCA is supporting the proposed water and power rate increases.
Thank you.
And those increases must not...
Thank you. Okay, if I could add the next. So I have Adam, Elizabeth, Harley, and then Sean Murphy. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Council President, Council members. My name is Adam Lane. I'm the Legislative Director with the Los Angeles Business Council. I'd like to keep my remarks short, but I want to thank the EE Committee for unanimously passing the rate increases yesterday. I want to thank DWP staff and leadership for coming back to answer our questions every time they were asked and really taking in the input our members provided. As we look towards the future of Los Angeles, we see resiliency and power in our water supply and expanding renewable and energy efficiency programs. By expanding our renewable portfolio, we'll continue to be a statewide and nationwide leader of programs that not only reduce our emissions, but also create economic development. This economic development is not only beneficial to the city and the utility, but LADWP's solar programs utilize locally made materials, promote local businesses and building owners, and create good local jobs. And the expansion of these programs under the increase will only go to further these benefits for Angelinos. On behalf of the LABC, I'd like to thank you for your time, and we respectfully request your support. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I can get again Ms. Hawley, Mr. Murphy, and Mr. Walsh. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. My name is Elizabeth Hawley, and I'm a Legislative Affairs Manager at the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, or VICA. VICA represents businesses across Los Angeles County, including many within the jurisdiction of LADWP. LADWP has held a transparent and fair engagement process with the business community. After several presentations and meetings, VICA members were satisfied that the proposed increase is necessary and well thought through with clear accountability. The City of Los Angeles needs significant investments in utility infrastructure. Its aging water pipes and power lines pose significant concerns for residents and businesses. Increased funding from the new rate ordinances will provide the necessary tools for the department to improve failing infrastructure and meet long-term sustainable energy goals. Local residents and business owners rely on LADWP to provide safe, efficient, and reliable utilities. This rate proposal balances those needs and protects the city's long-term economic success. On behalf of over 400 businesses, VICA urges your support on this important proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I could have Mr. Murphy, Mr. Walsh, and Mr. Previn.
Good morning, Mr. President. We need to find another way to not raise the DWP rates. For those who don't work no more than 3 days a week, you cannot raise the DWP bills, and I'm against it.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, Mr. Previn, and Mr. Hunt.
John Walsh at HollywoodHighlands.org. DWP, take a hike and stuff your rate hike where it belongs, up your butt. We're tired of this rate hike. While UCLA drowns in water, your pipes are falling apart. We've had it. And remember who's really running things here, Mayor Garcetti. We have had enough rate hikes. And this will create, as you said, 12,000 outside jobs that will all go to Mayor Garcetti's friends the way turf terminators did. We've had enough of this. We're asking you now to vote no. Go back, cut the fat. We don't want to pay it. The businesses don't want to pay it. We, people who've lived here since 1966, don't want to pay it. So fold it 4 ways and shove it up your ass.
Okay, Mr. Previn, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Spindler. Mr. Previn.
Yes, I'll take 60 seconds on this, sir. It's Eric Previn from CD2. Appreciate the presentations from the various DWP officials today, and they've obviously done a lot of effort on the Road and Pony Show to get this approved. I think it's impressive that they have the businesses in the boat. And obviously, you know, the infrastructure is critically important, and we do need to do something to maintain that. But this does seem particularly low, and nobody wants a rate increase, myself included. You know, I guess we are facing that. One point of efficiency that I think Ms. Edwards mentioned. There is, of course, a need for streamlining and debureaucratizing the environment over there. One specific is there's a rebate program that they have. If you put in a certain kind of pump on your swimming pool, they provide a $500 or $1,000. This has gone on for over 6 months, and I have tried, and they just simply have ignored or are not able to process these things in a timely manner. I think they should look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I could have Mr. Hunt and Mr. Spindler, please.
The Red Chief Hunt. Fuck the rate increases. Things should be going down, not up. It's the 5 white boys that's in charge of the city of Los Angeles. That's why everything's going up. Fuck them and vote no on this.
Mr. Spindler.
This is what happens when a city is destroyed. Rate hikes when gas prices are down. Generation fees are down. Up in Southern California, Edison, at my ranch that these people burnt fucking down, my electrical rates go down. But not here in this place. It always goes up, up, up. And we're fucking tired of these rate fucking hikes. It's got to stop. This corruption's got to stop. What about the lawsuits on the transfers? It violates Prop 218. They lose, which they will. $718 million has to go back to the ratepayers. You don't listen to people. The judges will listen to you. They will say, fuck you. No on this fucking rate hike scam bullshit.
All right, so now we'll go to item 10. I've got Walt. Again, a minute. Walt McNeil. I think it's a Gareth Geyer Alberto Trevino. Please come forward. Identify yourself. Yes.
Honorable council members, my name is Walt McNeil. I'm the attorney for Eck et al. I'm from Redding, California. I'm here to urge you to consider voting no on this rate hike, especially insofar as it perpetuates, it continues, and it makes worse the 8% transfer that's already the subject of class action litigation. There's been nothing in the way of transparency here. I think Angelenos need to know that out of $100 in every electric bill, maybe $77 pays for electricity and $33 goes other places. If they had any idea how bad that was, this would be a different story that you have in front of you today. So please consider doing the right thing, strip out the transfer, and follow the law.
Thank you. So if the next speaker would come forward and identify. And if I haven't called your name, you shouldn't be in line yet. Yes, go ahead.
Good day. Alberto Trevino, born and raised in L.A., business owner and property owner. I urge the City Council to vote no on this rate increase. The Department of Water and Power wants to substantially increase rates and electricity rates by one, new tiers and smaller allotments, new debt and revenue decoupling, and driving up rates in consequence and conservation to maintain ever-growing target revenue, a blank check bridge to nowhere. According to the DWP mailer, for the multifamily water rates, for Tier 1 will increase 19%, and Tier 2, 45%. Taking my 10-year history into account, we're looking at for Tier 1, 154% increase, and Tier 2, 324%. We can do better than this. And going to Councilmember Fuentes, let's take an action. We can take an action. Let's get out of the Stone Age and into the driverless car of the future today, and that's how. How? One, automated smart water meters.
Thank you. Thank
Direct
you, sir.
renter billing.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is expired. Thank you, sir. So if I could have now, it's either a Miss or Mr. Geyer, Patricia McAllister, and Ruben Gonzalez. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Good morning. I'm Johanna Dyer with the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is a nonprofit environmental organization representing over 2.4 million members and activists. First and foremost, we support LADWP's proposed power rates. The rate increase helps to fund power system improvements that customers themselves are demanding, including clean energy and energy efficiency, which we urge you to support as well. We strongly support several key aspects of the DWP water rate proposals, including the establishment of a 4-tier rate structure for single-dwelling customers to more effectively apportion the costs incurred by the water system to meet peak outdoor water use. DWP is committed to examining the issue of the tier allocations and how they can better promote conservation during the mid-rate review period, and we encourage the Council to also support making this change. Thank you again for the opportunity to present these comments. We applaud the City Council for taking a close look at the rates and what they may mean for LA, and we appreciate the positive movement we've seen in the rate structure.
Thank you. So where's Miss McAllister? Miss McAllister, you're next. Yeah, in fact, Miss, what is your name?
Graciela Geyer.
Oh, okay. Well, then, my bad. You go after Miss McAllister. Yes.
A little over a year ago, Mayor Garcetti said he would not endorse an increase. The water is poisoned anyway. We can't even drink it. Now, here's the thing. I think what this is all leading up to is this is what Barbeck of Nestle, it's leading up to the world's water will soon come under the control of corporations. And he says that it's astounding that we even claim the right to water. He says we don't have water. He wants to privatize water, and soon it will be managed by business people and governing bodies. So people, they're increasing, putting pressure on you and pressure. Every time you get a raise to make more money, they snatch it. What they're trying to do is make life so hard for us that when they push in communism and say, you don't have to pay a thing, let us take care of it. That's what they're pushing us for. Keep increasing, taking until communism comes in and you can relax because they'll be taking over everything.
Okay, Ms. Geyer, followed by Mr. Gonzalez, followed by Mr. Murphy.
Good morning. My name is Graciela Geyer. I am the new campaign representative for the Sierra Club on clean energy in Los Angeles, speaking in behalf of our 15,000 members in the city of Los Angeles alone. Let me say first that it is a testament to the new leadership at the DWP and the incredible effort to be transparent and responsive to the public that the Sierra Club and the Central City Association are both in support today. However, I want to acknowledge that this decision takes courage on your part. No one wants to pay more for anything. But those same people want a government and all of the services that a government provides to work. And that's why they elected you, to make it work. Let's not forget that the mandates that much of this rate increase will fund were created actually by a growing demand, public demand for climate action in California. Many of those residents and voters live in your districts. LA is famously a city of sprawl and smog and great inequality. This is our opportunity to leverage the great public investment before us.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. So if I can get Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Murphy, and a Teresa Martinez. Ruben?
President, members of the council, my name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. The plan put before you by the department is responsible. The outreach and education program they initiated was credible and robust. The job done by the ratepayer advocate was excellent, as usual. And the action before you today is necessary. We need to invest in our utility infrastructure to have a good quality of life for residents in our city, to have a strong economy, to have a successful business community creating jobs. It is so important that while we support the plan put forth by the department, we would also ask that the City Council forego any increase in the transfer that comes from the new revenue, because those dollars need more to be reinvested in the important utility infrastructure before you today. So please, support the plan before you, support the committee report before you, but cap the transfer. Thank you.
So Mr. Murphy, followed by Ms. Martinez, followed by Gina Goodhill-Rosen. Yes,
Clean energy, yes. No to DWP rates.
Thank you. So Ms. Martinez, Ms. Rosen, and Mr. Holland.
Good morning. I am Teresa Martinez, CEO of the Los Angeles Latino Chamber of Commerce. We're based right here down the street on Spring Street. The Los Angeles Latino Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to create a platform for the growth of Latino-owned businesses, which includes weighing in on policy issues impacting our members in order to level the playing field to enable Latino firms' full participation in the local economy. Today, we are here to support the LADWP's proposed requested rate increase. The LALCC represents thousands of Latino-owned businesses and companies who would prefer not to see the utility rate increases. Nevertheless, the Los Angeles businesses also recognize the critical need to replace aging and vulnerable water and power infrastructure in order to continue providing reliable service. Our members are aware of the need to protect the city from the effects of a sustained drought and ensure DWP can meet various regulatory and environmental mandates. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. So, again, Ms. Rosen, and if I can get John Holland on item 10. Oh, John is fine. All right, yes.
Thank you for taking public comments today. My name is Gina Goodhill-Rosen with Solar City. We're the leading provider of residential solar with hundreds of employees in Los Angeles and thousands of customers in LADWP territory. While there are several aspects of the proposed rate design with which we have serious reservations, overall we support LADWP's proposed power rate increase and commend the LADWP staff for their efforts to design a thoughtful rate that incorporates community feedback and helps meet citywide goals. The proposed rate will send a clear price signal that encourages energy efficiency and investment in distributed energy resources and discourages wasteful energy spending. The proposed rate includes what's effectively a tiered demand charge designed so that customers can reduce the fixed charge by reducing their usage. This sends a clear signal that the less customers use, the less they pay. I also want to commend DWP for their efforts to work on this rate through open communication and transparency. We thank DWP staff for their hard work to design this rate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, to the Madam Clerk and the City Attorney, that concludes public comment on these two items. Madam Clerk, you wanted to make a statement?
Yes, sir. In accordance with the requirements of Proposition 218, notice of the proposed water charges was provided by mail. 2,254 written protests were received by the city. This does not constitute a majority protest.
Thank you. Mr. Fuentes, I have some members. Do you want to say something prior? Okay, so let's start off with Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, Marcy, I want to commend you and your team for doing such an amazing job on a transparent effort on this rate case, and a thorough one as well. I also want to commend Mel and his colleagues. I want to commend Chairman Fuentes and the committee. And it's actually pretty remarkable. We wound up with quite a group of supporters of every stripe, including many that are usually very cranky about this kind of thing. So I commend everyone involved for getting here. Now, every time I talk about climate change impacts, there's always some major storm or other disaster that has just happened. Yesterday's was a fast-moving cold front that affected 22 million Americans, and that's just yesterday's. We have a climate change exacerbated drought that we all know about, and I think it helps us emphasize the fact that we need to move from a fossil fuel energy a source more quickly than we ever thought we would need to. The natural gas at Aliso Canyon, the natural gas leak, also makes another issue clear. We absolutely need to prioritize fixing our essential infrastructure before there are any more disasters, like also the recent one mentioned at UCLA, where Poly Pavilion was flooded, and we actually had some very close calls on drowning UCLA students, but we thank our first responders for avoiding that. One quick question. Given what happened at Aliso Canyon, and given rapidly worsening climate change, if we don't approve an energy increase in the rate today, will DWP be able to analyze the possibility of a 50% renewables or even 100% renewable scenario so we can take serious aim on eliminating our over-reliance on natural gas?
In this upcoming year, both the 50% scenario and the 100% renewable scenario.
Can you do it without this kind of funding?
I think that's what the study's intended to show, is what are the costs of that conversion.
Okay. Well, just one other point. Nobody likes to raise rates, and I think people forget council members pay them too, and we pay the increases. We also stand for re-election and have to defend the rate increases. But perhaps the most important takeaway is that if folks participate in our water and power conservation efforts and incentives, even as the rates go up, your monthly bills can actually go down. And so I certainly would encourage people to do that. I have no reservations about supporting these rate increases, and I strongly ask all my colleagues to approve them.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask a question, and then I'm going to have some comments. And Ms. Edwards, you're very, very careful and very thoughtful with how you talk about this, and you're to be commended on that. But what I'd like to hear is for you to elaborate a little bit on the consequences of not meeting our regulatory compliance responsibilities vis-a-vis the bond rating issue, et cetera. If you could expand on that a little bit, I think that that's a very important factor when considering the rate increase proposals.
Yes, sir. Probably the most stark example is there was a law passed a couple of years ago that required all seaside generating plants to move from ocean water cooling to dry cooling, no ocean water. That conversion is very expensive. It's a $2 billion endeavor. We were able at the time to negotiate a time extension to allow us time to make the conversion out to 2029. And we have a schedule established to meet it by that point, and we have the funding stream set. The challenge for us is if we don't make, I think it's $700 million investment in one of our plants next year, that 2029 timeline bounces back to 2020. And then I have a $1.5 billion price tag as opposed to something different. That's one of the legal mandates that's probably one of the most pressing.
And how possible do you think it would be to invest that $700 million plus next year if this rate increase proposal does not pass?
We won't be able to.
Okay. And are there any other regulatory requirements?
We have a requirement now to get to 33% renewable power in our portfolio. There's a strong interest in us going beyond that. We will not be able to make the 33% without this particular set of adjustments.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. President, what I'd like to do is just, I want to commend the chair of the E&E committee, of which I'm honored to sit on, Mr. Fuentes, for his leadership on this, and really quite the roller coaster ride of where's this all going to land. And that's a good way to set public policy, not exactly knowing where it's going to land, but endeavoring on the adventure anyway, because so much is at stake. So I want to commend you for that. And Ms. Edwards, for your leadership, really outstanding. I think that what you've done since coming aboard, in the definition of chaos, you came aboard right then. It couldn't have gotten crazier, and you stepped in with that as the backdrop. So I want to commend you for your leadership on, sort of landing this plane today. I feel very, very strongly that these rate increases have been thoughtfully and constructively and transparently put forward. They've even been whittled down from when they were first announced in December. I feel very strongly they are justified. And like my colleagues are probably going to mention today, and Mr. Kress just mentioned, it's not easy to stand up and say, I'm going to support a rate increase when a lot of my constituents tell me they want a decrease in power rates. But knowing what I know, I could not in good conscience not support this, knowing what we need to do in terms of investment in our infrastructure and the hope to invest in more renewables. That is the future of Los Angeles, especially in light of just having the hottest February on record. That's not lost on me. But at the same time, various reports over the years have called for a complete overhaul of the governance structure, reform. I think that we cannot talk about supporting rate increases without also talking about the controversies and the erosion of public trust through no fault of any individual's own who's sitting at the table currently, but the controversies, the billing disaster, the call center deficiencies, the Joint Training Institute, Joint Safety Institute, $40 million that is paid for by the ratepayers that is completely unaccounted for, and the customer service issues. So we know that there was reform in 2013. I'm happy that I was part of that reform that led to the pension reform and led to a labor agreement that DWP could live with, that we could live with, that it saved us billions of dollars over a several decade period. But just know that part one, I think, is we move forward with the rate increases, but part two is real reform. And that also means that next year, in 2017, when we renegotiate the contracts, that we eliminate the JTI and JSI. Because we cannot operate in an environment where there's such a lack of public trust, whether it's fair or not. That's just the way it is. So I strongly move that we approve this. It's good for the environment.
Watch your time,
it's
Mitchell.
good for Angelenos, and it's good for Los Angeles, even though there's going to be some short-term pain. It'll be up to all of us to help explain the justification for this vote, and I hope to work with you in helping to roll that out as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bloomingfield.
Thank you. I want to echo what a number of my colleagues have said, starting by thanking the chair, Mr. Fuentes, really for your thoughtful process on getting through the rate discussion. This was not something that we took lightly on the committee. As the chair mentioned, we spent over 7 hours of discussion on this, and we really delved into the details. And a lot of things were exposed in terms of issues at DWP and the need for reform. And it's hard to separate the reform issues from the rate case. And indeed, I think the rate case is informing the reform discussion, which will hopefully be on the heels of this as we move forward to ultimately get us in a positive direction. But one of the things that was, and I really want to thank DWP and the Ratepayer Advocate, because you didn't just come in and answer the basic questions. You really delved in with us and helped us get to the bottom of these issues and spent a tremendous amount of time on the backup in terms of the public discussion, but also the discussion that we had in committee and in private, I think was very valuable, and I'm grateful for that. What I think it's important for folks to know on this vote is that voting no does not yield the status quo. There is no way to keep the status quo. And I know a lot of my constituents want to say, just, don't do anything, don't raise my rates, don't touch it. But as we found in this discussion, if you vote no, we're then setting ourselves on a course for regulatory failure. We're setting ourselves on a course where the cost of money is going to be higher, and that is going to cost us. So when you vote no, you are going to cost us money in different ways, if not directly in the rates right now, in the cost of reliability on our power grid, the cost of reliability in our water system, the cost of potentially paying higher rates in the future because we have to spend so much to get the basic borrowing costs. So this is not a choice where you can just have the status quo. We have to move in a direction. So for me, I think there are some good policy things that have been put in here in terms of the decoupling, the performance metrics, the benchmarking. Those are all very positive attributes that have been folded into this that are moving us in a positive direction. Also, the AC thing that we discussed, the AC tune-up, that will allow folks, particularly in my area, but all over the city, who want to see their bills lowered, to actually go after those efficiencies, and on an individual case-by-case basis, you can lower your bill by taking advantage of the programs that are out there. And DWP, by putting a major emphasis on efficiency, I think is a very forward-looking thing for us as a city to be proud of. So again, it's not something that anybody wants to do. I certainly don't like raising the rates. My constituents don't like having the rates being raised on them. But I contend, again, that there is no status quo here. Voting no is a vote that has consequences, and those consequences are real and negative. So we need to move forward. I think I'm going to urge an aye vote on this, and I hope that everyone here does as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start by saying thank you to Mr. Fuentes for the thoroughness with which he studied this issue in committee, and for allowing me the courtesy yesterday of coming to committee and being allowed to do my homework sort of live while you were doing your work. And Ms. Edwards, I want to thank you. I want to actually talk about how much I respect the way you've handled this. I really respect that when you came aboard, you put a halt on this so you could take a look at it and make sure we got it right. And I also respect that you're not asking for everything that you want, because you're not sure that your agency and your utility is able to deliver it yet, and you have a path to get there. This, to me, is about our obligations and about our opportunities, our obligations to have a reliable system and to meet all the mandates we have, and the opportunities we have to continue to green our system and have a first-class power and water system. Having said that, because it doesn't get us to where we want to be completely. It doesn't get us a 100% reliable system. It doesn't get us a 100% green system. I want to get a sense of how far it gets us there. So we have huge infrastructure needs, backlogs. How much of our infrastructure backlog does this get us to? And because you're on my time, please be succinct.
My name is Mike Webster. I co-lead a power system. Just 3 examples. For our power poles, we have 100,000 priority poles, and this gets us about 25% into our program over this 5 years.
Okay.
Cross arms, we have a couple 100,000. This also gets us about 25%. And transformers, we see those on their streets, and it gets us to 33% less priority because we did a transformer replacement in 2007.
What about the water side?
Marty Adams for the water system. In terms of the pipelines, we currently have about 400 miles of what we rate called D and F-rated pipe. So in the next 5 years, we'll be able to replace about half of that, and then the rest of that in the following 5 years. And this will take a huge chunk out of the mountain of aging pipe that we have facing us. And as far as resources go, we'll go with our recycled water local resources in concert with LA Sanitation. We'll go from 10,000 acre-feet a year of recycled water to about 60,000 acre-feet a year,
Okay.
and we'll be more than doubling our stormwater capture.
So the power rate revenue is going to help us invest more in local solar, according to DWP's materials. How precisely is this going to help a resident or a business who wants to go solar? Yesterday I asked, and I heard a lot about megawatts and stuff. How does this help someone who wants to go solar?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that really do help. Is that the trends right now in our rates for the 3 tiers, it really helps promote solar because people can knock off those higher cost tiers, and I think that's really important. The power access charge also allows for the bundling of battery storage and solar so they can be designed as package systems so that customers can offset those charges, which I think is very, very important for us locally. And we also are developing a community solar program for our low-income customers so that they can have direct install, as well as a roofless program for those that don't have the benefit of a rooftop that they can put solar on. They can still participate like all the other customers that have roofs.
Okay. Your materials say that the additional water revenue will help us reduce our reliance on imported water. And it says specifically that it will help us recycle water and capture more stormwater. I'm trying to get a sense of how much more water we will be able to recycle and how much more stormwater we'll be able to capture.
So our current recycled water is about 1% of our city water supply. So that'll go up by about 6-fold. And a lot of that will become groundwater recharge that allow us to better use our local groundwater supplies, pumping groundwater as drinking water. And on top of that, we'll more than double our stormwater capture efforts as well. And then we'll be recovering the use of the San Fernando Valley by cleaning up the aquifer.
So we'll increase recycling by 6-fold?
By 6-fold, an increase in recycling and doubling the stormwater capture under this proposal.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnet. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to just thank Chairman Fuentes for his hard work and his really focused attention on this issue. Appreciate the efforts to really bring a comprehensive rate approval approach to the table. Appreciate the real community outreach that's been done. Marcy, appreciate your leadership. And coming out to the district, doing a little tour. Appreciate, Chairman, your leadership on the commission and the ratepayer and advocates. And I certainly am inclined to support this, the increase, as my colleagues have suggested. But, you know, we talk about water and power. It's also a great deal of economic power, obviously, in it. And, you know, we have a concern, one, about small businesses, local businesses. In my committee, the ED committee, we did a survey of city departments and the programs that they have regarding small businesses, local business participation, et cetera. I'm not sure if DWP responded. Several of the departments didn't. But I would like to get some take from you on programs you're going to have to encourage more small business participation in contracting. I know that there are obviously some limitations, you know, to gigantic power plants and turbines, et cetera, et cetera. But what are you doing to encourage local businesses, small businesses to do business with DWP? And have you been successful in those efforts?
I will tell you, sir, of all the information I brought, that probably wasn't included. And what we will do is go back and go through our programs, make sure we respond to the interest as far as what we have, and we'll provide you a more detailed report.
Okay. I would appreciate it. And, again, I think you should elevate this as an important area, as a priority area. I think it's equally...
The chair did remind me, sir, that we have been holding a series of small business academies, which are designed to inform small businesses in how to access funds, how to work within the city. I think we had, it's like 800 or 900 people attend the last one. So we have been doing that.
And I might just add that a number of the graduates of the Small Business Academies have come to the board meetings and commented favorably on how this has helped them to understand our processes better and help them to be able to compete and procure more effectively.
Well, I think the council would also like to know, especially the Economic Development Committee, what the initiatives have been, the success in those initiatives, and again, how we can increase. We're talking about making a bigger pie. We also want to level the playing field to the extent that we can. In another area, you mentioned that we're going to be procuring $1.5 billion in bonds a year for the next 4 or 5 years. And again, my question is, how are we working with emerging firms, small firms? Are we encouraging partnerships? Are we just going to Wall Street? Are we letting some of these local professionals get in on this public financing opportunity, multi-billion-dollar opportunity?
And as we've done in the past, we are using those firms that you mentioned, a number of them. We have a great deal of firms, but we do have firms, minority-owned firms, to give those opportunities, and we'll continue that with this going forward. In fact, there's going to be a lot more opportunity because of the level and the amount of bonds that we're going to issue. So we'll continue that program.
Well, again, I'd like to get some information on that program. If you have a list, I'm just curious, or who's responsible for it, or how you're doing outreach to firms, professional organizations that may have an interest in participating in some degree. Finally, talk a little bit about how this, and I think you kind of referenced it a couple times, but how this rate adjustment is going to impact low-income families.
Go ahead.
And I saw that the tiers is the lower tier, just presuming that those are kind of the poor folks who just use a little bit of electricity, or kind of how does that kind of shake out?
So when our rates are again conservation-based rate design, and when we look at our customers that are in our low income or lifeline, they tend to use lower amounts of power and water than our typical customer. So that we're consistent with our cost of service. Those customers will see lower rate increases because of their conservation, for whatever reason that they're doing it. But I know that the low-income and lifeline customers do use less power, where we have a typical power customer consumes about 500 kilowatt hours. The low-income and lifeline are about 350 to 400. So they'll see lower increases, which is consistent with the rate design and consistent with the cost of service. So it will be a lower rate increase for those customers.
So aside from the rate, what would you call it? What was the program for low income?
Low income, and then there's a lifeline.
The lifeline. So
right.
Just the lifeline. The lifeline is your primary program, though, for low income. Is that
no?
correct?
Actually, low income is the bigger program, which is based on how much the customers make, and they get a subsidy. Lifeline is for older as well as medical needs customers that we have, and again, we can give you more details.
Lower rate.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then finally.
Mr. Price, why don't you press your button? What, just your last one?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Just one last quick one here. On the lawn rebates, a spectacularly successful program, a lot of interest in it. Is DWP out of that business now, or are we going to see some more another rebate program for converting lawns?
We still offer rebates for changing out turf. They're slightly smaller because they're not being subsidized anymore by the Metropolitan Water District, but we still have a good rebate.
Okay. And I appreciate the conversion that was done at the district office. At our district office, it's gotten a lot of compliments, and I think it goes a long way to putting the money where the mouth is. Thank you. Congratulations.
Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jeff, I wanted to follow up on Councilmember Price's question, but I have 3 questions and a quick comment, so if you could make your answer succinct. Can you elaborate on that tier system? for both water and power and how you calculate it. But more importantly, you mentioned earlier about how you're going to divert more power to warmer areas. So how does the tier system affect warmer regions in the city like the San Fernando Valley?
Sure. So in both our water and power, we look at and tier our rates, which is based on the science. So it's based on the science of the temperature zones. We know, for example, on the water side, if you're in a warmer zone in the valley, that you require more water for California drought-tolerant landscapes. So those areas will get higher amount. We're using it's called ETAF, which I won't get into that. And on the power side, it's the same thing. If you have a refrigerator, which is a big consumer, and it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer, you're going to consume more energy. As such, you get more energy and you get bigger budgets or allotments in the valley. Okay. And that actually yields pretty consistent rates as far as overall rates, but we know it's based on the science.
So the tiers are set a little higher.
Correct.
Second question, I don't know if you can answer this today, but impacts on city departments, in particular recreation and parks. I believe I spoke with them, and with this new increase, they're expecting like a $40 million jump in their water bill.
Right, and that is the Schedule F, which based on Prop 218, we have to go on cost of service. And so for a long time, that's been a very low rate. We have been doing a lot of work with rec and parks through energy efficiency, water conservation, to try to minimize the impacts of that. We're also doing it, and we're phasing it in over 5 years, so it's mitigating some of that impacts. But it's going to be an ongoing effort with rec and parks, but it's a legal constraint that we're under.
Maybe we could continue this conversation possibly with Councilmember Krikorian in the Budget Committee, but I'd really like to kind of explore that. Third question, actually I'll just convert it into a comment. My office has been working closely with DWP on the critical infrastructure water main repair at Runyon Canyon. And I think we've finally gotten to a point where this project is moving forward, and the coordination between the various departments that my office insisted has saved the city $2 million. I'm hoping you'll build more of this management of this type of collaboration into the management of future ongoing infrastructure projects, and I'm sure you're going to do that. All right. Lastly, on this vote, I have to be honest. I really feel like I'm in a rock and a hard place because, I want to be clear. I mean, you guys made a very persuasive argument today. Not just today, but many times when you briefed my office. And there is no denying the fact that we need to improve our infrastructure for both water and power. No denying that fact. And the initiative that you're proposing today are more than reasonable and more than necessary. But the question today is, but that's not necessarily the question today. I think the bigger question is accountability. The need to assure our constituents that the rate increase that we're going to do today is actually going to go towards infrastructure and nowhere else. While I personally would have loved to have the reform discussions before we had this vote today, I do understand and concede the urgency of the fact that we need this vote. So while today's discussion is not about reform, when we do have that discussion, I look forward to re-examining this transfer because I have grave concerns that the transfer that we currently do in the city is currently tied to revenues. And part of our work to restore trust in government has to be looking at reforms that put controls on this transfer that separates the revenue and provides limits. So that the folks and our constituents don't think that we're raising rates to increase funding to the city. So thank you.
On the issue of accountability, Councilman, which is extremely important, obviously, I'd like to ask the ratepayer advocate to just outline very briefly a couple of the provisions that are now included in this proposal at his suggestion, which deals specifically with accountability.
First, we're proposing a number of performance measures for the department that will be reviewed twice a year by the DWP board, and that will continue through the process. In addition, there will be a complete top-to-bottom review after 2 full fiscal years, making sure the money has been spent where it was planned, and making adjustments as appropriate, thoughtfully, not automatically, but thoughtfully and transparently at the end of 2 full fiscal years. But we'll be watching this every half year.
Yeah, no, and you guys did a great job of building a great coalition, and I mean, having the ratepayer advocate in support means a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me say that this may be the beginning of a new day for the DWP. And I, too, want to thank Ms. Edwards and the team for the outreach that you've done regarding this case. Mr. Fuentes, I think, has done a masterful job in shepherding this through, and also in raising the very important issues about governance and reform and restructuring that so many of my colleagues have spoken about. And I'm very heartened by both of those things. I also share the concern just expressed by Mr. Rue and by many of my other colleagues about accountability and ensuring that whatever rate increase there may be at any time is spent appropriately on what serves the best interests of the ratepayers. But members, I also know this. When I was running for the council 7 years ago, the intersection of Coldwater and Ventura exploded when a 62-inch water main, one of the main sources of drinking water for this entire city, blew up. And that intersection was flooded, businesses were destroyed, homes were destroyed, and Mr. Kretz and I went door to door, meeting those neighbors as they were hauling all of their worldly goods out of their homes and onto their lawns that had been destroyed by mud and water. And this is that pipe. This is a piece of the water main that William Mulholland laid for this city in 1914. And that's the pipe that destroyed our constituents' homes and businesses. So anybody who thinks that this utility can continue to function and serve our ratepayers and serve our business community without investing heavily in its power and water infrastructure right now is living in a fantasy world. And we just have to be real about the fact that even with this rate increase, this utility is competitive with or cheaper than the surrounding utilities in our area and much less expensive than every investor-owned utility in Southern California, even with this increase. So we would be doing a disservice to our business community. We would be doing a disservice to our homeowners, our property owners, our renters, everyone who lives in this city if we don't allow this utility to start investing in the things that we all know and all should be able to agree that we must invest in right now. There was quite a discussion about renewable energy, and I have as strong a history on renewable energy, I think, as anybody. But that's not really this discussion. This discussion is keeping the lights on. This discussion is about making sure that we turn the handle on the tap, water comes out, so that we don't become like Flint, Michigan. That's what this discussion is about. So I would urge you, members, all of us, let's show unanimity, let's show strength, let's show that we understand that water and power are the things that make this city function. And without making an investment like this, a modest investment, an investment that the LA Times said was too little, that even our OPA suggests may be too little. Let's at least do this much. Then let's get busy on the hard work that Mr. Fuentes and others have talked about in restructuring, reforming governance, doing the other accountability measures we do, and let's take a long-term view for how we continue to supply water and power for the people of this city. But it starts now with your aye vote on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Englander.
Thank you. Because of the events surrounding the Aliso Canyon gas leak, its effect on the residents and businesses in my district, I know too well what can happen when vital infrastructure is allowed to age to the point where it fails. Infrastructure cannot be neglected. It requires consistent investment and updating.
Governance of municipal utilities is also essential infrastructure. And DWPs is every bit as outdated as the pipes, the transformers, transmission systems, and it too requires dramatic overhaul. Transparency and customer service are also essential cornerstones for a modern municipal utility. And unfortunately, the DWP doesn't have that great of a track record going back decades. The recent billing scandal and subsequent settlement of ratepayer lawsuits are obvious recent examples. It highlights a DWP culture that is so deeply mired in bureaucracy that it took over a year to resolve problems related to the debacle, including the ability to simply hire enough customer service representatives to meet that need. So I cannot support a rate increase that essentially allows the city to delay governance, transparency, and customer service reform. The residents of my district have been asking the ratepayers and to get involved in governance and asking the ratepayers to pay more while waiting for reform that may or may never come is just putting the cart before the horse. So reforming the governance, improving transparency, providing improved customer service, this is a three-pronged formula for success for rate increases that I would support. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I ask Mr. Fuentes if he'd like to say a few words to close, members, I just want to say that I was just at a meeting last night where I indicated that leadership is not about doing what you want to do. That leadership is about doing what you have to do. That leadership is about taking people places where they don't think they want to go. And I think that kind of sums up the position that we are in today. I would like to acknowledge the hard work of Marcy and the department, the hard work of my former assembly member and congressperson Mel Levine and all of the people at DWP. I think that the members of this council demonstrated today that they are knowledgeable, concerned, and that they are well versed in this issue, and that they are determined to move forward. So I'm very, again, proud to be a member of this body. But I also have to say that where it relates to Mr. Fuentes, Mr. Fuentes is the first individual that really talked to me about the importance of incorporating reform into the conversation were related to increases on the water side, on the power side. He did this at a time when it was not the talk of the town, when it was not the popular subject. He did this because he firmly believed it, and all of the work that he's done for, I want to say, about a year or longer to put in place recommendations where it relates to governance, and his thought process where in response to the request to raise rates. So I just think that it's important that we go on record, and I do want to acknowledge that. A few members mentioned concerns where it relates to governance, and I want to indicate to you that the committee overseeing this process has already met once. It is scheduled to meet again tomorrow in the Valley, and it is the desire, the goal of the Rules Committee to have before you, us, this body, in June, a reform package that we will be able to vote on and place before the voters. But again, with all of that said, I do want to now recognize and thank you for the thought-out process, the good hearings, and for the additional work that you put in on this, Mr. Fuentes. With that said, to close, I recognize you, sir.
Mr. President, there's no better close than that. I urge an aye vote.
Okay, I like that. All righty then. So, Madam Clerk, let's open the roll. Oh, it's a two votes, so let's go 9. Let's vote 9, then we'll vote on 10. So now the vote is on item 9. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 2 noes.
Let us now go to item 10. Let us open the roll, close it, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
And Mr. President, those ordinances will be held over to March 15th for a second reading.
Okay, thank you. Members, a very good conversation, and I want to acknowledge the members of the public that came in to share their views as well. Ms. Martinez? Ms. Martinez?
Madam Clerk, let's move on to item 23.
Item 23, called special by Councilman Huizar.
Mr. Huizar?
Fantastic.
Item 23, sir. That's right.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, we discussed last week Excite Technologies, a battery recycling facility in the city of Vernon, which was allowed to operate for more than 30 years with a temporary permit by the California Department of Toxic and Substance Control. This agency is charged to regulate Excite and protect our communities, but after violation, they still were allowed to operate, eventually exposing 100,000 people to dangerous levels of arsenic and contaminating as many as 10,000 homes with lead pollution. Decades of unabated pollution from Excite battery recycling plant has resulted in excessive contamination levels in what many are calling a silent toxic catastrophe in Boa Heights, East Los Angeles, and Southeast Los Angeles, where residents have been complaining about unexplained health issues consistent with toxic exposure, including cancer and other illnesses. On February 12th, when we introduced a resolution and this motion, we stood with people from Resurrection Church in Boa Heights, including individuals who had heartbreaking stories to tell about death and illnesses in their families and on their blocks due to what they believe was long-term exposure to this plant and its contamination. And our biggest concern as we stand now was that DTSC and the state were simply not reacting to what they say is the largest contamination in state history, and they weren't acting like the major emergency that it is. The resolution we passed earlier last month sends a statement that the City of Los Angeles supports actions by Governor Brown and the state legislatures. It also ensures that we are on record saying that the DTSC needs to have a fully funded and expedited plan with a public timeline and all the necessary resources, financial and otherwise, to test and quickly remediate all possibly contaminated homes and public spaces in Boa Heights, as well as the surrounding communities and cities which share our concern. The motion before us today calls for the city attorney to report back in 30 days on what legal remedies are available to the city to obtain accountability and adequate cleanup funding from Exide and the state. It is important for the city to know its legal options to ensure that DTSC and Exide can be held accountable for the cleanup that is needed to protect our residents. 2 weeks ago, after our motion and resolution were introduced, the governor committed $176.6 million to clean up the lead in the soils of Ball Heights and the surrounding communities, residential yards, schools, parks, and daycares. This is a great step forward, but it is not enough. Currently, the DTSC is undergoing environmental review of its plan for the closure and remediation of the Exide site closure plan. We need the Bureau of Sanitation to prepare and submit comments on the EIR for DTSC's site closure plan prior to the March 28, 2016 deadline. These comments should demand the closure plan follow the highest standards of public safety and environmental protection. More specifically, these comments should include safety of workers remediating the site, plans to protect the public during the transport of hazardous materials and contaminated soil through residential communities, the safe handling and removal of tons of lead that remains at the site, and protection of the surrounding community from any airborne contamination stirred up by the closure activities. I would like to thank Councilmember Fuentes for waiving this matter from his committee because of the extreme urgency of this issue. I would like to call and I want to thank the Bureau of Sanitation for their initial work, but if somebody here is from the Bureau of Sanitation, I have a couple of questions for you, if that's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Saldivar, welcome. Good afternoon. Mr. Weezer, we also have a couple of cards on this item.
You have?
We also have a couple of public comment cards.
Public comment. Okay, thank you. Just a couple of questions. And first, thank you to the Bureau. You've done some work already, some preliminary analysis. But given the urgency of this issue and the deadline of March 28th, we want to ensure that we get our comments in. I know sometimes these comments take some time to prepare and analyze, and given the technical issues involved, can we meet this deadline?
Yes, we can, Councilman. Enrique Zaldivar, General Manager of LA Sanitation. We can. We have the capacity, the capability. You know, we are an environmental protection agency, so we have depth in this area.
Thank you very much. And so this can be handled quickly and efficiently. And do we have the proper expertise in the department to respond to DTSC's plans to transport hazardous waste through the community and recommend protections for the community as they transport these, if they so choose to transport hazardous waste through our communities?
We do, and in fact, I want to introduce to you right now, to my left, is the person whom I have designated as my chief scientist in this. He's also leading the review of the EIR first and foremost right now. He is also calling on the depth of our expertise in other areas within the department. So Dr. Mazdujiri is here sitting to my left.
Thank you. Welcome. So just basically, if we have the proper expertise in our department, I want to ensure that as we review the technical documents, the city is able to properly review the documents. And we're raising this, I'm raising this because we have lost faith in the DTSC and their ability to properly oversee the remediation. They've been slow to respond. They've been issuing temporary permits for 30 years after violation of violations. So we want to ensure that if the state is not doing their proper job, that the city is stepping in with proper expertise. And just a question, do we have that expertise to properly evaluate the EIR and give proper comments?
Yes, we do. I have someone on my staff, Dr. Mahesh Pujari, who is an excellent chemist, and he's going to oversee the chemistry portion of it. And we have another individual with our Regulatory Affairs Division, Mr. Jim Marchese, who is an expert in reviewing EIRs. And I have actually reviewed the EIR myself.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to the comments and appreciate you being here today and staying through the other items to be able to respond to those questions publicly. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, sir. The first speaker is Frank Villalobos on item 23, followed by Teresa Marquez and John Walsh.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you concerning this very important matter in Boyle Heights. My name is Frank Villalobos, and my address is 3530 3rd Place in the city of Los Angeles. I'm here in support of this item because our councilman is correct in his statement that this is perhaps the largest single catastrophe that has happened, not because we are the ones that are causing it, but our neighbor to the south has been causing these kind of concerns over and over again. I am concerned primarily with the ability to look into the water damage that is caused. 7 years ago, it was determined that the water coming out of the storm drain system was polluted. And that is how it brought to the attention of AQMD at the time. And we then recognized that we were beyond our ability to control it. So in this environmental study, I would appreciate the opportunity to participate along with the department to make sure that we are prepared with any kind of dilemma that we may face in the environmental, because the state excluded the environmental requirements as part of the funding. And so thank you, and I am in support of your concerns.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Teresa Marquez, followed by John Walsh.
Thank you very much. My name is Teresa Marquez. I'm a member of the Mothers of East LA, president of Boyle Heights Stakeholders Association and Resurrection. And I am also member of the advisory board for Excite and DTSC committee. I'm going to tell you, I own property and live in Boyle Heights. My property happened. I'm sure you're aware of the contamination area that they have outlined for you. Well, we don't trust them. The community doesn't trust them, and I want to thank our Councilman Huizar to come and support us and advocate for a better job done. They're not doing a job. Out of 10,000 homes that I don't know how they got that number, but it's 110,000 properties that have been notified. So they have 10,000 properties that they're supposed to clean up, yet only 500 have been notified, and only 186 have been cleaned up. As you could tell, they're not doing an efficient job. And the other thing is that my house is basically half a mile north of the boundaries that they think is the contaminated area. My house has been tested, and my house has been tested and shown that it's over 1,000 parts per million on the ground, and in some parts 1,500. And the acceptable is 80 parts per million. So you could tell how badly DTSC has allocated the areas that need to be done. And I hope that Councilman Huizar helps us to make sure that that extended area is also included on the testing. But it's devastating to see the contamination. And if you're in denial that this is happening, the rest of us were in denial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Walsh?
John Walsh at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential. I think the last speaker has to understand. Your skin is not white. The only way you get treated with respect at this racist city council is if your skin is white, and especially if you live west of La Brea, and especially if you're my religion, Jewish. I just want, remember the song, if you're black, stay back. If you're brown, you can stay around. But white is the number one thing. This place has been poisoned. The battery, Exide has poisoned this area, and they're very, very, very slow in cleaning it up. That's because you people don't have white skin, and you're not rich, so they treat you like shit. And everybody knows that, and I want one person to get up and say anything else.
Next speaker, Wayne Spindler, followed by Eric Previn.
This is a horror waiting to happen. 23, it says it's in CD5. Now the Jews are being attacked by all of these DTSCs. Now this is hit from CD14 to CD5. My God. Paul Koretz never told me this. Encino's never been warned about this contamination spreading all the way from Boyle Heights to Encino. Jesus Christ, what a catastrophe! Thank God now that we know. We must fight back against this environmental disaster. The city charter says on section 2.1 of page 200, no Hebrew is allowed to lose property value due to contamination from soil poisoning. Remove this from Encino immediately.
Mr. Previn?
Yes, good morning, Council President Martinez. It's Eric Previn from CD2. And obviously, the Exide-related contamination that was, I think, in Vernon initially and is right next to Boyle Heights has been a great concern for many decades. And finally, thanks to, unfortunately, the Porter Ranch disaster, which was in a affluent neighborhood in the west part of near Northridge or whatever, in Chatsworth, whatever that, Porter Ranch, finally attention was brought forward about this environmental disaster. And every 15 minutes, Weezar and others jump up to be the shepherds that for decades did absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, the governor, who has come forward finally with $176 million, which is extraordinary and long, long overdue, and the failures of DTSC and DAGR and all these other agencies that are populated by people just like you sitting around this, many of you who know them, who did absolutely nothing for so long, really, really irked members of the public who have been paying attention. But of course, we are thrilled and pleased that something will be done. And we certainly hope that what will be done is effective at cleaning up the contamination, not at padding with extra engineers to do additional studies and various consultants to bring lots of information that we've already been compiling. I mean, the people in this area have suffered so egregiously that I have to say, it irks me as everybody proudly pulls together here once again, because this has just been a terrible abnegation for way too long. And all I can say is I wish the people who can be brought in to do the cleanup speedy work and so that they can restore these people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Mr. Koretz?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to commend Mr. Weezar for his hard work on this issue and to note the clerical error that places this in CD5. It is actually in Mr. Weezar's district, CD14.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. That concludes cards on this item, Madam Clerk. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Item passes. Thank you.
And Madam President, there is a request that all items go forthwith today.
Very well. Without objection. Thank you. Mr. Bonin, you have a reconsideration on item 18.
Yes, on behalf of Mr. Blumenfield, I'd like to ask to reconsider item 18 for a technical amendment.
Members, let's reconsider item 18 for Mr. Bonin on behalf of Mr. Blumenfield. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote, and you have a verbal amendment?
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield would like to amend item 18 to say that the date for relaxed parking enforcement should be changed from March 5th, 2016 to April 2nd, 2016.
13 ayes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Bonin. Let's move on to item 22.
Item 22, called special by Councilmember Koretz.
Mr. Koretz, item 22.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 750 Edinburgh is a classic LA bungalow court that's fallen into some disrepair, but which can and deserves to be preserved and rehabilitated as a prime example of the kind of rental housing that was built back in the first half of the last century, when LA went from being a sleepy suburb to a burgeoning city. Despite some problems with deferred maintenance, it had residents in it till sometime last year, when it was threatened by demolition by its new owner, and in fact work was begun on the site. The community rallied around preserving the site. Thanks to the effort of the Planning Department's Historic Preservation experts and the Cultural Heritage Commission, Edinburgh was recommended for historic monument status, and I've always supported that, at least in concept. Out of consideration to the property owner who argued for the infeasibility of preserving the buildings in their current condition, and my own viewing of the disrepair, Edinburgh was then subject to one of the more thorough structural engineering reviews I've seen in one of these cases. The LA Conservancy graciously stepped up to commission an independent review of the bungalow court and concluded that it can be repaired and preserved. And I'd like to thank the Conservancy for its commitment to the review process and to making it as fair as possible. The owners, BLDG Edinburgh, for their cooperation in the process. And I want to thank the neighbors for coming today and for their attention and involvement with this issue. And I think it's time to save the Edinburgh bungalow courts. So I urge an aye vote to adopt items 1 and 2 as recommended by the Cultural Heritage Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Mr. Spindler? We can do without the clapping, sir. Mr. Cedillo?
Madam Chair, and I've spoken to Councilmember Koretz on this, and I will vote for this, but I do want to note that it's problematic, not so much the declaration of the property as being historic and that it merits conservation and preservation. But what's problematic, and I just want to note this, is that the process in which it takes place, and I've raised this concern before, and it is a problem that has to be addressed if we're going to build housing in the city of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles is in need of 100,000 units of housing. Housing is built by developers, and we should be fair to them. And it's unfair, I think, patently unfair, when a developer comes to the city, gets the permits, gets prepared to build the housing, makes the investments, does all the stuff that's puts them right on the edge of ready to go forward, and then we come with late notice to them and tell them that their property is not eligible for the development that they were prepared to make. And so it's not to argue that we vote against this, but to note that we must do better for developers. They need certainty. They need to know that if they buy property and that we permit them to build, that they will be able to do that and that they will not be stopped in the last minute. These points were raised in committee, and Mr. Koretz, we've had this conversation. I'm prepared to vote for this, but I do think it's important to note that as we struggle and challenge with the responsibility of building 100,000 units of housing in this city. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, sir. We have satisfied public comment on this item, so let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 3, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, called special for cards.
Mr. Walsh, item 3.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. These are the lighting districts. Actually, this is Los Angeles Street and 2nd Street. You do a good job on lighting the streets. It wasn't true before, but it has been since the lighting was upgraded. And remember, when you do a good job, I am the first one to thank you and to spread the word. I'm not one of these old guys, all about the clocks. That's not me. So thanks for a good job on city lighting.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That concludes cards on item 3. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that item passes. Let's move on to item 4.
And for the record, the ordinance will be held over to March 15th.
Thank you. Item 4.
Called special for cards.
Wayne Spindler, item 4.
Make the Dodgers pay for this item on number 4. This is in Solano and Amador. The Dodgers need to pay for this. Do not let the beleaguered Angelinos living in Solano pay for this. This is benefiting Dodger Stadium. This is not benefiting homeowners. Cars go through Solano and Amador. They go to Dodger Stadium. They come back after they buy beer, have fights with gang members, then they go back out. And as a result of all these fights with gang members, they need more lighting. Lighting is good. We need much more street lighting. Because when you go to a baseball game, what are the 3 things you need? Popcorn, pot, and prostitutes. So you need lights to accomplish this after dark. And Gilbert Cedillo knows this to be a fact in CD1, but he's taxing the homeowners and the property owners instead of the Satan Dodgers, who do not know to operate their business without fights with gang members. And that's why it's bad. That's why one councilman just crossed over the aisle and agreed to vote with me on this. So yes, join Paul Krikorian and vote no on this item on number 4. Make the Dodgers pay for their own lighting for the prostitutes and pot.
That concludes cards on this item. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. And tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item, item 7.
And that ordinance will be held over to March 15th. Item 7, called special for cards.
Michael Hunt. I don't see him in the audience. Michael Hunt, item 7. He's not here. Wayne Spindler, item 7.
Once again, another place that needs lighting in CD6. This is in the ghetto, Sheldon Street and Sharp. There are many important business activities in this area. For example, they have excellent sales on rock cocaine and crack. And to do this,
about the item, sir. Stick to the item. I'm going to have you sit down.
But you need more lighting to accomplish nighttime activities, such as tourists, for example, that want to go and visit an interesting place on Sheldon and Sharp. Where else in the world can you go in a city, the second largest city in America, at night and actually see drug sales on the corners and the police department drive by? It makes a great photo app. So for all the people in China,
You're not speaking on the subject. Thank you very much. That concludes cards on item 7. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And that ordinance will be held over to March 15th.
Very well. Let's move on to item 1.
Item 1, called special for cards. And there is a request to continue 1B for 30 days to April 1st, and a request to receive and file 1F because it's an owner-occupied dwelling.
Okay, without objection, let's move on to cards John Walsh on item 1.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. I have to say that when people come down here with questions about their liens, we tell them what to do, and how to approach the city council, they're pulled over to the side. Their lien is postponed for a couple of weeks, and as you know, they never come back. They don't come back because they're satisfied, because their lien has been either radically reduced, as anybody who gets up and protests these liens will find out, or it's been eliminated. In other words, working together, we have been able to save a lot of property owners large amounts of money, and anyone who watches this knows how we fight for the rights of the people who have liens against them, unjust liens. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Next speaker, Patricia McAllister. Item 1.
I am very concerned about people losing their homes. We have enough people on the street. This is Herb Wesson's district, District 10, where thousands of black people are being put on the street. This is item D, D as in David, 3261 South Hillcrest Drive. $550 for noncompliance enforcement fees. $2,215 at 250% a late charge, which is a collection fee. $336 for code violations fee. $200 at $20.16 for system surcharge. $50.40 late fee, and $114.50 accumulated interest rate, 1% a month. So here we're talking about multiply that by a couple thousand for Herb Wesson, and this is a year. He's not reaching out to the people, telling them what they can do to get these liens off of their homes. I think that this is criminal right here. Now, this 250%, that's abuse. That's criminal. That says you're trying to take people's houses. Reduce that 250% late fee, that percentage, to about 20%. We want the people to stay in their homes. We don't want the mob to get the homes. I am requesting that, and I'm going to try to get some lawyers up in here, because this city needs to be sued. 250%. That's loan shark kind of behavior. What kind of mess we have going up in this council? If anybody charged you 250% interest on anything, you'd be in court. I know I would. What's wrong with you? Get some backbone and some guts and act like you're human. We're here to help the people, not to hurt the people.
Next speaker, Eric Previn. Thank you, sir. Wayne Spindler. You have a minute left.
I'm trying this out with the dog. Please speak. Okay, he's not ready yet to talk, so I'll address it. Notice that $1,288.56 is exactly the amount on B, F, I, J, L, N, P, Q, V. Notice that exact amount just happens to be coincidentally the exact amount on each of those liens and all those different properties. Now, what are the chances of that? What kind of bookkeeping is this? I mean, even a dog can sniff out this corruption. That's right. And we have to stop this bullshit. So we waived CD5's lien on B. That's good. CD5 is the winner today.
Madam Clerk, that concludes cards on item 1. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, item passes. Why don't we move on to our special meeting?
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Harris Dawson, Weiser, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mrs. President.
Okay, without objection, that item is before us, members.
Item 20 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, I have cards on item 20. And I have no members on the queue. So John Walsh, item 20.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. These are on-call professional service contracts, which we need like a hole in the head. We're supposed to hire people to do the job, city workers. We're not supposed to, but the way these corrupt politicians work it, they hire professional services. Here, they are being hired to be on call. In other words, they don't even have to do the job. They have to be somewhere near the telephone. And what are these jobs that city workers cannot do? We need very highly skilled people to do this job. Well, look at the list. Contractor, Fair and Piers, People Street Project Evaluation, whatever the hell that is. Fair and Piers, Vision Zero Technical Analysis. I would suspect if you canceled this contract, nothing would happen. Nothing bad would happen. Line-by-line study and community dash need assessment update. We need more dash buses. We don't have to hire transportation management and design and pay them what? $500,000 to tell us that? The citywide Walk to School Day program, Nelson and Nygaard, I think that's another $500,000. Miracle Mile Neighborhood Traffic Management, why do they need one only? Why do they need a special traffic management plan? Why do we have to pay extra money for the Miracle Mile? Oh, that's because the mayor lives near Miracle Mile. That's why we have to pay a few $100,000 more. And there's two contracts for Miracle Mile, La Brea Hancock Park neighborhood. Yeah, neighborhoods where white people are. If you live in a black neighborhood, you won't get that.
Next speaker is Wayne Spindler on item 20, followed by Eric Previn.
Yes, back again. This is completely total dog shit. And that's why the dog is here to, and I agree with the animal that even a dog can see what total bullshit all of this is. Look at all of this waste. We don't have 66,000 city employees, and we don't have anybody that can study whether we need more dash buses. You have to be fucking kidding me. What is Vision Zero Technical Allowances? Does that mean blind people now are going to be analyzed? And what about the People Street Project? All you have to do is just go up and walk up to people and go, hey, people, what the fuck street projects do you need? You don't need a consultant for that. And the citywide Walk to School Day program. The first thing you need to do is which area of the schools are we talking about? In Encino, the parents walk their kids to school. In the ghetto, you take a GAT with you, and then you walk your kids to school after you pay protection money. We do not need Nelson Niggard. My God, we have Nelson Nigger on this contract. I can't imagine that. How racist. And that's right. And then Gibson Transportation Consulting for Miracle Mile? What's so miraculous about it? We should change the name to Ghetto Mile from Neighborhood Traffic Management Plan. And the Ghetto Traffic Management Plan adding La Brea and, of course, Hancock Park, where most of your campaign donors spend the weekend after they're over in CD6 doing what? Buying crack and drugs underneath those city lights. Vote no.
Thank you for that perspective, Mr. Spindler. Next speaker, Eric Previn.
Good morning, Council President Martinez. This is the item 20, which has to do with the Department of Transportation's request for to sort of pay out to the bench of consultants who we can go to whenever Bonin or whoever decides it's a good time. And obviously, there are some usual customers on that list. There's Fair and Piers appear twice. This is a group that I caught my attention at the end of January because as you were looking at the, I guess the SB 743 piece where we're trying to make metro stops categorized a certain way with the VMT. We engaged Fair and Peer off this panel for $491,000 for 3 years. So they are right back in it on this one. There are two for them, one for $474 for the transit service analysis. That actually is supposed to be a line-by-line study about the dash needs. That's another $500,000. And then $177 million for the Vision Zero technical analysis. Now, Vision Zero is a very positive and great idea, but why we're paying a consultant for all that money, who's a consultant who's already getting all that money, raises some questions. And I think the public is annoyed, frankly, because this is a $1.6 million worth of upscale transportation consulting when most of us just are mired in horrible traffic all the time. And what we get for it, essentially, is parking penalties and preferential districts from Mr. Koretz and everybody who want to make it impossible to find anywhere to park, so that then, in fact, you get another $75 penalty. And it happens all the time. I know of a youngster who got a ticket, while the guy was pulling his car out. They run over and make sure you get your little ticket, even as you're trying to comply with the law. So I don't know. I mean, Salita Reynolds is from the Bay Area. She's an upscale character. I just wish that we were making some concrete steps forward.
And next speaker, Michael Hunt. Michael Hunt's not here. Oscar Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, I'm going to remind you, this is item 20.
Item 20.
Item 20, we have to stick to the item.
So my free speech has been violated?
No, not violated, sir. This is item 20. I just need to make sure that you speak on the item. Okay? Thank you.
Well, I would like to speak about the street people project evaluation. How do you grade people who don't do nothing? Like the Chief Charlie Beck let all them people hang on the street without the lottery law being passed.
Mr. Mohammed, see, that's not on the agenda. That's not the topic. This is item 20.
It says street people project evaluation. This is not what.
No, this is on professional consulting services. Is what the item's about.
It's certain, sir. The truth is not in certain. The truth is the truth. Chief Charlie Beck not enforcing the lottery law. We have lottery laws how long you can stay on the sidewalk. They're not being enforced by the police chief.
We can talk about that during public comment, but general public comment, but not on this item. Thank you, sir. That concludes cards on item 20. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And Madam President, there's a request to send this item forthwith.
Without objection. Let's also adjourn the special meeting and return to our regular meeting.
And that takes council to general public comment.
Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt's not in the audience. Eric Previn, followed by Sean and Patricia McAllister. Is Mr. Previn still here? Yeah. There you are.
It's Eric Previn in the general public comment. And Councilmember Martinez, you can't shut down a speaker. He was, in fact, talking about People Street project evaluation, which he had checked to say, hey, can I talk about that? And as just a member of the public, I said, sure, because it's on the agenda. Now, I don't know why in the world you feel it's your role to sit there and hector public speakers. Mr. Mohammed, whether you like what he wants to say or not, has a right to speak before this body with items that are under the jurisdiction of this council. I mean, this body simply finds any way they can to allow wrongdoing amongst one another. What is wrong with you? Why not simply step forward like you grew up in a civic class and participate in these meetings the way other people... I mean, have you ever been to another meeting? Have you ever been, Mr. Cedillo, to a meeting where people are hectored by the council president during their speech? I mean, I've never encountered such conduct, and I find it deplorable, I must say. And Councilmember Wesson, please step forward. You are a civil rights leader, sir.
Thank you for that perspective, sir. Next speaker is Sean, followed by Patricia McAllister.
Not very happy with the DWP increase. They'll do what the hell they want to do. But when it comes to people can't pay their DWP bills, they have to move out of Los Angeles. That ain't right. Universal Media Outlets owns KFWB. I might as well tell you that right now. KFWB has been around for 91 years Friday. I don't know what format's going to be now. They'll tell you about the history of KFWB if you tune in today.
Next speaker is Patricia McAllister, followed by Mr. Walsh and Crystal Jones.
As I think you know, I'm very concerned about people losing their homes. I want everybody to listen to this. There's a program called the Handy Worker Program, and it allows a maximum of $5,000 per home for minor home repairs and a maximum of $300 per home or rental unit. Okay, now, this is very important. This is in the city's budget. Little old ladies come in here, they can't pay and get those violations fixed. Well, under the city's revenues and expenditures budget for 2016-2017, $2,800,000 is sitting in this kitty. It's citywide. It's called the Handy Worker Rehabilitation Program, and they have two companies that have this contract, and one is Watts. It's called Watts Labor Community Action. And these companies are supposed to come out to your house and fix those violations up to $5,000. This is what they kicked me out of here about yesterday for telling you. Let's sue this city.
Next speaker is John Walsh, followed by Crystal Jones and Maurice Harville.
John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.org. The vote went by so fast, I hope people saw what the vote. England voted, he's gone now, he's raising money to run for supervisor. But the only person who showed, of the 15 people up here and the mayor, his profile and courage was Mr. Councilman Gil Cedillo. He voted against the rate hike. I hope the media will talk to him. I hope the Times will talk to him and find out why we convinced Councilman Cedillo, who I hope runs for mayor now, why we convinced him to vote no. The vote was 13-2. And Mr. Krikorian, he voted yes. Time for the recall. Remember, Cedillo has done an excellent job by voting no, voting against the rate hike.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Next speaker is Crystal Jones, followed by Maurice Harville and Oscar Mohammed.
Councilmember Martinez, Price, Koretz, and Blumenfield, and a couple of others, we have come to your office, we have met with your people, we have told you about the dangers of wireless technology being weaponized in the city of Los Angeles and asked for your help to keep the people of Los Angeles safe from this weaponized technology. We have heard absolutely nothing from any of your offices. We've ran up on your Mayor, Eric Garcetti, along with Mr. Price, while you were installing two-way transmitters and smart meters at the bus stop on 54th and another street. And we told you on tape about the people that are being tortured, raped, and murdered by this wireless technology, and nothing is happening. Nobody has contacted us. We have over 100,000 followers in Los Angeles who are voting for you, so I suggest that you guys make a move and try to protect LA, because we are going to inform them that our
protection is not your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker, Maurice Harville, followed by Oscar Mohammed and Jacqueline Richardson.
All right. Either you motherfuckers is retarded or you taking a pay cut. There are no laws on wireless weapons. Wireless technology equals wireless weapons. As a result, you got wireless radio home invasions. This consists of rape, torture, harassment, and this is priority number one with a weapon that you have no defense against Radio weapons go through steel, water, and concrete and are used for communicating. That's what's happening to victims all around the city of Los Angeles, and nobody's talking. This is getting pretty stupid, and it doesn't make any sense why nobody's talking. So this is priority number one.
The next speaker is Oscar Mohammed, followed by Jacqueline Richardson.
Yeah, my name is Oscar Mohammed. I'd like to speak for the, we need more affordable housing. We need more affordable housing. We should have fair distribution of the wealth to the needed. We should have checks on our government. Our government just get money without checks, do anything they want to do with it. But anyway, we should bridge political responsibility. But it was 3 young black men that would ask what type of professional craft you want to have when you grow up. One black man said, I want to be a professional basketball player because they make a lot of money. The other black man said, I want to be a professional baseball player because they make a lot of money. The third black man said, I want to be a preacher. He's a professional preacher. He makes a lot of money because he is a professional liar.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I appreciate your understanding earlier. Jacqueline Richardson.
The Los Angeles Times may know about it, but they don't know they know. El Segundo Police Department, El Segundo, California, may know about it, but they do not know how to handle it, and they need technical advice. This covers the GPS system. It may not be happening now. The Avengers come early in the morning when people are asleep, and they shoot them. They shoot them in their sleep. The Russian people may know something about the Avengers. They may know why they kill people, why they're after them to kill them, and why they want to kill them. I don't know very much about it except a little. The sounds can come through a GPS system. That's all I know, and a little more. The Avengers, we don't know what they look like, but sometimes you can hear it through the GPS system, and maybe El Segundo may be able to help with it, maybe.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes cards for general public comment. Madam Clerk, what's before us?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred. Members, any announcements? Seeing none, can we please rise for adjourning motions? Adjourning motions, Mr. Cedillo.
Madam Chair, you had an incredible presentation this morning about all the great Latina leaders of our community. I want to talk about one, because in our community, women are the backbone of the family. They are the referees. They are the ones who keep the family together. They're the ones who make sure that we're nourished. They're the ones who give us our moral compass and guide us through the challenges of life. I want to talk about Mary Ellen Montoya, who this Monday passed with her sons and only daughter around her, 3:36 in Sacramento this Monday afternoon. She was born March 19th, 1936, and she was born at the San Joaquin Memorial Hospital in Fresno, California, to Josephine and Joe Juicy Prieto. Mary Ellen was raised in Fowler, California, amidst the fields of her youth where her and her parents worked. And it was at Fowler High School where she, a song leader, met a yearbook editor and a cartoonist named Joe Montoya while attending St. Lucy's Church. Soon after she married Joe, he was in the Navy, and they had 6 children: Gina Marie, Joe Jr., Carlos, Richard, Mal, and Vincent. And she raised those children with her husband, who became a poet and an artist, renowned. He has a current show on the west side of town, Jose Montoya. And they raised him as they worked the fields in San Diego, Long Beach, Oakland, Wheatland, Sacramento, as they traveled as part of the group that was the United Farm Workers, with marches from Delano to Sacramento. She was one of the persons who was the backbone of this movement. And she made sure people were fed, children were cared for. As I said, she refereed many of the little tussles with all the children. And her children grew to be poets, playwrights, bankers, musicians, and artists. They are all renowned in their fields. And it was from her tireless and dedicated work as a bilingual educator in Sacramento Unified School District, where she worked for over 30 years, that she raised this family. One of her students was Kevin Johnson, who is the current mayor of Sacramento. This is just reflective of her contributions to the community. She enjoyed coming to Los Angeles to see her son Richard in his plays. Richard is, of course, a dear friend of mine and one of the three persons with Herbert Seguenza and Rick Salinas, the group known as Culture Clash. And she would enjoy coming to see Richard in his plays and seeing her daughter Gina, who's a leader at the Mexican American Defense and Legal Education Fund. She is leaving behind her husband, her children, 15 grandchildren, and 13 great grandchildren, including Mountain Montoya, who is a leader at City Terrace Elementary Kindergarten. She was an incredible, incredible woman to have been part of that social milieu, part of what's called the Chicano movement. She had all the leaders of the movement visit their home. She fed Cesar Chavez and his brother and Cesar's wife and the whole families, making sure that they were nourished and prepared for their strikes and their battles and their boycotts. She was an incredible woman, like all Latinas, the backbone of her family, of her community, and we and her family miss her already tremendously. Thank you.
Very well said, Mr. Cedillo. May she rest in peace. Any other adjourning motions? Mr. Huizar?
Thank you, Madam President. And colleagues, I ask that we adjourn in memory as well of Elba Beruz, an amazing community advocate, mother, grandmother, friend, and selfless human being. She was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador on November 18, 1945. She studied public accounting in Ecuador and came to Los Angeles on November 1966 to offer her professional accounting services in Los Angeles. But she did much more than that. Alba proudly served the Ecuadorian community in Los Angeles for more than 35 years. Here in the City of Angels, she was known as the founder and proud organizer of the annual Ecuadorian Independence Day Parade, celebrated every August down the streets of Broadway in downtown Los Angeles. The pride and joy that it felt on that day by the Ecuadorian community living here in Los Angeles is truly beautiful, and we can all, and they can all, thank Alba for that. Alba had a great love for her homeland, but also a great love for her adopted home here in the United States and the city of Los Angeles. It was through her efforts that on January 24th, Ecuadorian Dual Citizenship Day was celebrated annually here in Los Angeles. She hosted a wonderful event in the Tom Bradley Tower, where she loved showing her Ecuadorian friends the view of her beloved city and all that was possible for those living in it. After the tragic World Trade Center terrorist attacks in 2001, she worked with the Ecuadorian and U.S. government to help the family members of Ecuadorian victims living in Ecuador obtain humanitarian visas so they could bid farewell to their loved ones who resided in the United States and passed away. Also in 2001, Alba fulfilled one of her life dreams on November 28th when she visited the Vatican and met Pope St. John Paul II, where she took the opportunity to speak with him about the importance of supporting Latin American immigrants in the United States. Alba was the founder of many organizations that advocated for the well-being of Ecuadorians in the United States. Everywhere she went, Alba proudly carried her Ecuadorian flag, never forgetting where she came from. She made friends and allies with Latin Americans from other countries as she advocated for immigrant rights and recognition for all countries. She was a loving mother and a grandmother who was adored by her family. She also had many extended children, those who saw her as a second mother due to her nurturing ways. Even as Alba's health declined, her spirits remained high, and her giving, loving personality did not falter. She fought her illness as long as she could, wanting to assure that those she left behind were well taken care of. Elba Beruz was a gift to her family, to the Ecuadorian community, to the United States, and the city of Los Angeles. We were blessed to have her in our lives. She took care of her family and community for decades, and now it is her time to rest. My deepest condolences to her 4 children, Carlos, Eda, Jacqueline, Carla, her 10 grandchildren, relatives, and countless friends here in Los Angeles and throughout the Americas. She will be greatly missed. Rest in peace, Alba Beruz, a great woman, a great human being, and someone who did so much for this city and was very proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer. Any other adjourning motions? Seeing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.